Hello, hi. Okay, so I'm just going to stop my diffuser. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are or whenever you're watching this. I'm so excited to finally be starting this free mini course, Get to the Root of Your Symptoms. It was supposed to be last week, but I had one of my own symptoms here, and maybe that's something we can talk more in the next classes this week. But yeah, I pretty much lost my voice, and I tried doing the first class last Monday, but I just ended up coughing too much. So I decided to just cancel it and let it heal. I rested a bit more last week, and now I'm ready to do the best. So how is this course going to work? You'll always have access to the classes in this very group, the Radicata Nutrition Community. So you can watch live every day at 11 a.m. Pacific time, or you can catch the replay right here. We'll meet every day this week for about 20 to 30 minutes to talk about the different roots that your symptoms can have. And it can be any kind of symptoms, whether you suffer with fatigue, bloating, gut issue, hormonal issues, blood sugar issues, brain fog, depression, anxiety. The list can be really long. And it doesn't really matter what symptom you're struggling with. We need to be tending to these roots. We need to first dig them up, uncover them, untangle them, see if there are any toxins that are contaminating your roots right now, and then replacing those toxins with nutrients that, I'm just going to close the window, that are going to better nourish your roots. Let me first just double check that it is working. It seems to be working. Good. Okay. I just wouldn't want to be talking by myself without having this recorded, right? So I hope you're ready, because so many of the things we read about, like on the internet, or people tell us about what we should do, or even our doctors, and it's often about finding a band-aid solutions that may help mask some of your symptoms and help you feel better, but the root of the problem is still there. And as long as you're not taking care of it, the symptom will still be there, and you'll still need to be taking that, whatever Band-Aid you're using to cover your symptom. And that Band-Aid can be things like medications, of course, but it can also be like supplements, or any kind of, superfood, or whatever new thing is out there that is supposed to fix whatever problems you have. Usually there's something deeper that we need to get to, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Just a disclaimer, this is not a course where, this is not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any conditions. Please always work in concert with your healthcare team and physicians and all of that before making any changes. Okay, so throughout the week, we'll look at 4 main roots that our body has. So today we'll talk about the body, tomorrow about the mind, then the heart, then the soul, and on Friday, we'll look at how to integrate all of that together, to tie that in. I highly suggest you grab a journal because just to take notes first. It could be any piece of paper, really, but just have something close, because it's one thing to receive information, but it's another thing to put it into practice. I know I've been guilty of that, reading all the books and giving all of the different advice, but not really doing the work. So today, not only will I give you some information and tips and clues about where to look at to better feed and nourish your different roots, but we'll also take some time to just dig a bit deeper in your own life, so you can do that little journaling exercises I will suggest, so you have something to start working on this very week. Okay. Oh, first, maybe I should introduce myself for those of you that are new here. My name is Aglaé Jacob, but you can call me AJ. I'm a non-diet dietitian, a heart and soul nutritionist, and a self-love guide. And I struggle with many, many different health issues in my life, especially around gut health. That's why I wrote my book, Digestive Health with Real Food, and also hormonal imbalances like PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I use a real food-based approach and many other natural strategies, but especially what is really important to me is to use a holistic approach. And, holistic is a word that is thrown there and everywhere a lot it means different things to different people. But for me, it goes beyond looking at the whole body, the whole person, and all the, the body system, because what conventional medicine does is usually isolate a body part and look at that specifically in isolation. But what is important to me, of course, when we talk about holistic, is to look at the whole body, how the different body systems interact with one another. But I take that to a whole new level, because I also think that, beyond the physical body, there's also the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body, and how all of that merge together to help you feel your best, be yourself, and live the life that you want to live. So this is what this means to me when we're talking about getting to the roots. So we're going to go very deep, very quickly. So let's get started. For day one, as I said, we'll be talking about the body. For some of you, maybe this information will be basic because maybe you've done a ton of research already. For others, it might be new information. So it really doesn't matter how educated you are. Even if you feel like you know everything you need to know about nutrition, I still think that you need to be watching this today, because I'm sure there'll be at least one or two of the top 5 toxins we'll talk about today that are still present in your life. And then you can see what you can do to remove those toxins and replace them with nutrients. So yeah, today we'll talk about the 5 main toxins that I see people have in their life, especially related to their body. And then we'll see how we can replace them with some nutrients. Okay, just wanted to make sure that this is still going live, because sometimes, I didn't get any feedback. So if there's anyone watching live, please say hi. Tell me where you are located. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so let me just write down toxin number 1. What do you think it's going to be? It will be about food. So the first toxin is inflammatory foods. I like talking about food first because I'm a registered dietitian after all, and also because a lot of people like talking about that stuff. So of course, it is quite obvious that the body cannot heal and function at its best if it's constantly under attack. Oh, hi, yay, some people are there, yay. Some foods may be inflammatory for some, not for others. It's really individual. And what makes it so individual is that some people are more just sensitive, maybe because of their background, maybe, some medications they are or were on, maybe some infections that changed their gut flora in some way, maybe the way they were born, C-section versus a natural birth can also influence all of that. So of course, we can say that a food is inflammatory for everyone. Well, maybe with processed food, I could say that, but for other things like, gluten and dairy and nightshades, nuts, seeds, and eggs, it can be highly individual. The ones that I think that we could agree on that is probably not good for the majority of people, as I said, is processed foods, including sugar, alcohol, caffeine. I would also say soy, any foods that may contain residues of pesticides, GMOs, and even on our water, we may have chlorine, depending on how your water is treated and where you get it from. So all of these things can trigger inflammation in our body. And for other people, they may have additional food sensitivities. So depending on the state of their gut flora, on the state of their gut, if there's leaky gut present, then other foods that might be healthy for some can become inflammatory. And that's when gluten, soy, corn, dairy, nightshades, I don't want to give a list of foods because again, it is so individual, but being aware of where those foods are present in your life. And in case you haven't heard of nightshade before, that's totally normal. It is just a group of food, mostly vegetables. It's a family of plants that is high in a compound called glycoalkaloid. That's usually not a problem for most people, but for some, it can be a problem. And that includes foods like regular potato, not sweet potato, tomatoes, bell pepper, eggplants, actually all kinds of peppers like hot sauce and things like that, but not black peppers, goji berries, and even some herbs like ashwagandha. So just know that there are some foods that are inflammatory, and for the purpose of this course, we want to keep it more general. I would say that processed food and those foods that are very far from their natural state are more likely to cause inflammation. What is most important here is to talk about what we could use, what foods are better to remove the inflammation, basically. What foods are anti-inflammatory and what food can help you, your whole body works so much better. So some of these, no controversy here, but vegetables and fruits, especially if they're organic, so we don't have those pesticide residues, are really great at providing your body with so many antioxidants and other compounds that will help your body function so much better. I say organic. I mean, if this is not within your budget to buy organic, then you can always consult the 30 dozen list that will let you know about the 12 or so most contaminated vegetables and fruits that you should avoid if you cannot buy organic. And there's also the clean 15. So those are the list of foods that, even if not organic, don't contain a lot of pesticide residues and that are therefore safe to eat non-organic. So maybe I'll put, if any of you want the link, I can let me know and I'll put a link below this video. So vegetables and fruits and plant matter like that, so anti-inflammatory. Then omega-3s are so useful, and I see so many people not getting enough omega-3s. And also getting way too much omega-6, which comes from refined processed vegetable oils. So the best sources of omega-3s are really the marine sources that comes from fish and seafood. So that includes sardines, wild-caught salmon. Those are my go-to because they're the most sustainable, most nutritious, highest in omega-3s, and also the least contaminated with mercury. But you can also go to seafoodwatch.org to look for the different types of fish in your area that are the most sustainable, least contaminated, and all of that. But even, if you have the choice between, if you're worried about mercury, I still feel like eating fish, and I still feel it. It's not a feeling, it's backed up by studies, that eating fish is still more protective. It just brings a lot more protection to your body than it can harm you. So fish is really, really, really important to get your omega-3s. Then in terms of animal protein, choosing pastured, grass-fed animal protein is not only giving your body more nutrients, it's also preventing you from being exposed to any kind of chemicals, toxins, and residues of pesticides or GMOs and things like that. So if you can, again, I think that this is a good way to eat meat in a very ethical way by choosing pastured, grass-fed, making sure the animal it comes from, your animal protein comes from a quality source. And again, you can do that by doing some online research or contacting your local Weston Price Foundation or going to your local farmer's market. Spices and herbs are also an excellent way to add a ton of antioxidants and remove or reduce inflammation in your body. Healthy fats are so important. My favorites are things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado, coconut oil. There's been a lot of controversy about that one recently, but again, I don't want to go into that in details here because that's not the purpose of this class, but this is just CBS. There's actually nothing wrong with coconut oil, and this came from an association that is sponsored by a lot of companies making processed foods and all of that. So I'm not too sure about the credibility. And if I looked at, what they were referring, what kind of research they were referring to, and it's nothing. It's just a waste of time to even talk about that. So yeah, coconut oil is still good for you. Ghee or grass-fed butter. You can also make homemade mayo and vinaigrette with those fats. Even animal fats, I'm not afraid of, even if it's higher in saturated fat, especially if it comes from an animal that's healthy, that is organic, or that was grass-fed or pastured. So those are all great sources, and having those fats in your diet can be really, really helpful. Then drinking plenty of pure water, and that chlorinated water as much as you can. If you Need to you can get a filter or try to obtain better quality water. This is so important. Like think of each of your cells like little sponges that need to be, if they're dry, they don't function very well. So you need to hydrate your cells for them to function fully and do everything they're supposed to do. And then maybe a couple more things about anti-inflammatory foods or nutrients. Vitamin D is so important. I've seen so many of my clients having very, very low vitamin D levels. Like one of them had 8, and it should be around 50-ish if you're using the American units. So that is very low. Most of us are deficient, and the higher, the closer to the North Pole or the South Pole you are, the more at risk you are to being deficient. But even people in San Diego can be deficient. So nobody is protected. The best way to know is to have your blood levels tested, and most people should be supplementing because it's just too hard to get from food. And having enough vitamin D is important for so many different functions in your body, but reducing inflammation is one of them too. And then fermented foods like sauerkraut and kombucha and yogurt and kefir if you tolerate dairy, as well as probiotics. Those are really great at helping your gut flora be healthier. And there's such a strong association between the gut, the brain, and how the whole body functions. So if you can have a healthy, thriving, balanced gut flora, then you're very likely to be better and able to handle different kinds of stressors and toxins that are thrown at you, because we're not immune to that in the society we live in today. So that's one way you can protect yourself. So that was the first toxin I wanted to talk about. Now, the second one is not about food, but it still affects your body in a pretty major way. And that is sleep deprivation. Anyone here can feel like I'm speaking to them right now? Yeah, that's you. So the guidelines are that we should be getting 7 to 9 hours a night. It should vary with the seasons. Some people need more or less, but usually between 7 and 9 hours, even though you believe that you're okay with 6. Studies clearly show that when we don't get enough sleep, first, we're not as good at making good decisions for ourselves. Even if we feel like we are, the study shows that our cognition is impaired. And then it also affects how well our different hormones work, including our blood sugar regulation. So we become more insulin resistant, more likely to have blood sugar crashes, and then blood sugar cravings, carb cravings, and all of these things that can make it more difficult for us to eat healthier. Then during sleep, a lot happens to repair, maintain, heal the body. So we really need that sleep. So what can we do to remove that toxin that can be lack of sleep and replace it with optimized sleep? One thing is light. Looking at the light that you are exposed to on a daily basis. One of the best things you can do is go outside around midday for 15 minutes at least, just to get exposed to the sun. Even though it's cloudy, it doesn't matter. There's just so much light, natural light, that's really good for your body to know that, okay, now is daytime. So then it's easier for your body to know when nighttime comes. And then to make that easier for your body to recognize day from night is to minimize lights at night. And so that can mean just turning off some lights, and especially turning off screens like your laptops and computers and TVs and smartphones and all of that, because that blue light is really confusing for our brain, because our brain really thinks that it's still midday with all of that bright line shining into your eyes. So one thing you can do is install the free software Flux, F.LUX. Just Google that and install it on your computer. It's free. It helps block some of the blue light. You'll just notice that around sunset, there's just a change in the colors and the brightness of your screen that happens naturally to help with your sleep. So that's one thing you can do too. But ideally, stop electronics for an hour or two before bedtime. And then having a bedtime routine is just so important for your body to know that, that bedtime is coming, and that prepare your body to sleep. better. So ideally, again, 1 to 2 hours before your planned bedtime, which should be between 10 to 11, will be really helpful. And then caffeine. Anyone drinks coffee here? Caffeine can really, I don't think that we necessarily need to avoid it, but if you do drink it before 2 p.m. as much as possible, because it is stimulating, and try not to drink more than 1 to 2 cups a day. Many people go for decaf and actually ends up feeling worse. And this is because decaf coffee is processed with many different chemicals to remove the caffeine. So if you want to try decaf, choose Swiss water process decaf coffee, because that is just the natural way to remove caffeine from your coffee without adding a ton of chemicals in it. So you can try that. But again, just be really careful with the caffeine that you take in and the time of the day you take it. So yeah, sleep is so important. So let's all try to get to bed at a good time tonight. The third toxin, okay, we're back to talking about food, but it's not so much about the type of food, but how much you eat. So it is a big physical stress to be undereating or overeating, and many of us end up alternating between those two. And that is a major stress for the body, especially like I've been guilty of that and seen so many other women specifically do that, like having a very small breakfast and a small lunch and trying not to eat too much for the first part of the day. And then when they come back home or in the evening, they just can't stop eating, and they end up, they go from undereating to overeating. So yeah, that's a big stress for the body, because the body isn't receiving a steady supply of nutrients. So, I know a lot of people have experimented with intermittent fasting or the bulletproof type of coffee, which I think is good for some people, but I think that it's important to know that it doesn't work for everyone. It's important to know that in my experience and even in studies, most of the study with intermittent fasting are done with men. Women operate very differently. So I've seen it being more successful with men versus women. I've also seen that it works better if an individual is healthy first before trying those things. So yeah, those are just things that you need to be aware of. For most of us, because of the fast-paced life that we live, because of the many different toxins we're exposed to on a daily basis, because of the chronic stresses that we deal with, our body needs to feel safe by receiving a steady supply of nutrients throughout the day. So that means eating regularly. Most people don't really know how much or when to eat anymore. And this is because there are just so many conflicting information out there, and also because everybody's different. There's no one clear-cut answer that I can give you, and it's just very individual. But when we'll talk about the fifth toxin today that we need to remove, maybe that will help you better know how to eat just enough and not too much for your body. But really the goal is to give your body a steady supply of energy and nutrients so it can function better and be more resilient. Okay, so that was the third toxin. Let's move on to the fourth one, which also has to do with food. And it is, let me just make sure I've spelled that right. Okay, blood sugar fluctuations. So still have some residues of my sore throat last week. Maybe I should just drink a sip of water and listen to my body. So blood sugar fluctuations are also a big physical stress that many of us experience many times a day. We're more likely to have blood sugar fluctuations. So that's when your blood sugars go up and then down and crash and up and down. It's like a roller coaster. So it's more likely to happen if you eat a lot of processed foods, a lot of carbs and sugars, if you're not adding enough protein or healthy fats to your meal. And I see so many women not eating protein like for breakfast or barely for lunch. So that makes it a lot more difficult to balance your blood sugars throughout the day. So, of course, it is normal for blood sugars to fluctuate throughout the day, but we want to go from this to something that's a bit more steady and stable and soft and gentle. So how do we remove that toxin and replace it with something that's more nourishing for our physical body? Well, we need to better time and balance our meal. For most people, eating every 3 to 5 hours, again, it depends from one person to another, will help better balance your blood sugar levels throughout the day. Then the balancing of your meal is about having that protein piece. For most people, 3 to 6 ounces, maybe a quarter of your plate of protein is a good amount to start with. Then a good amount of fats. Please, I hope no one here is still afraid of fats. There's been a lot of fat phobia about the fats that we have in our plate, and a lot of that has been debunked. There's just so many studies, like peer-reviewed meta-analysis, including like over 350,000 subjects. So a lot of people followed for up to 21 years, showing that saturated fats have nothing to do with heart disease. And there's just so many healthy fats. I find that the healthier fats are the ones that are the least processed. So again, I talked about that a bit earlier. Coconut oil is still one of them. Extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, grass-fed ghee and grass-fed butter. What else did we say? Well, fats from dairy products and grass-fed pastured animals, like the yolks in your eggs. Please never throw your yolks away. That makes me so sad because that's the most nutritious part of the eggs and contains really healthy fats. And then other fats from healthy animals can also be, whether it's in your animal protein or whether it's something that you use to cook, like tallow or lard. If it comes from pastured organic animal, that's totally fine. So healthy and nutritious. We often hear that fats are empty calories, but if it comes from good sources, it's not the case at all. The only empty calories, the fats that are truly empty calories are the processed, refined vegetable oils like the soy, canola, and corn and peanuts, and all of these oils are more empty calories, but not those fats, those good healthy fats I'm talking about today. So having a combination of that and then vegetables, the fiber is really important. It helps to slow the digestion of your meal down, as does the protein and the fat, actually. So all of that will help to give a more steady supply of energy to your body and ensure that your blood sugars don't peak and rather just increase slowly and it's released slowly into your body. And then some carbs. Some people do better with low carbs, but I find that for most people, 1/2 cup to 1 cup of carbs per meal, whether it comes from tubers, roots, some grains. Personally, I eat gluten-free, so things like rice might be an option, or fruits. Those are all good ways to get your carbs in. Again, it's very individual, but to make sure that your blood sugar levels are as steady and stable as you can, because that will help your energy levels be more steady and your body to have the resources to function better. Then you need to better time and balance your meal. And then we're talking about the 5th toxin in just a minute, but that will also help you fine-tune all of that, tweak that. So you're more well, let's talk about the 5th toxin so you know why I'm saying that. So the toxin number 5, which will help which will help you better recognize and remove many of the previous toxins that we just talked about, is okay, let me rewrite it. Feeling, I don't want to say it right now. I just wanted to let you try to guess. Okay, so here it is. So it's feeling disconnected from your body. And it goes it's way more than a feeling, because then it impacts your behaviors and your actions when it comes to taking care of your body. So I would say that the majority of people are disconnected from their body. They don't know really what it means, what it feels like to be hungry or starving, or just satisfied or stuffed. They don't know the difference. They're just so disconnected. Many people have lost trust in their body. They feel like if they do feel hunger, then they feel angry at their body. They feel like their body is betraying them. They feel like their body is needy. And for other people, the sign of hunger is just, they feel, oh, maybe I'm losing some weight, and they're trying to not, to push through it in an attempt to lose weight. So those are all ways that we can lose that precious connection with our body and that precious trust, because our body is just so important. That's the vessel we use to live our life. We need to take care of our body better. We need, for some people, I feel like their body is like an inconvenience, but it is not an inconvenience. It's that gift that we have that we need to take care of, to be us, to live our life, to do everything that we can do. So maybe one way to see if you feel disconnected from your body, like think of a memory. Think of yesterday, for example. Think of what you ate for lunch. Think of yourself eating lunch yesterday. Do you have it in your mind? You see it? And now try to see, were you in your body when you were thinking of that memory, or were you like seeing yourself from outside having that lunch yesterday? When you think of a past memory, if you're thinking it as a third person, as an observer, it's most likely that you are disconnected from your body. Whereas if you have that memory inside your body, you're more likely to be still connected to your body. So I'm curious to hear what you found out. Let me know. But how can we reconnect to our body? How can we better trust it, better care for it, like it deserves to be taken care of and trusted? Because there's so much great information that comes from our body if we learn how to listen, if we learn to trust the messages that we receive, and if we learn to give our body what it needs when it asks for it. It's just like a good friend. This is something that needs time and practice to build. It's, if you haven't answered the phone for when your friend is calling for a decade or more, it will take some time to rebuild that, but it can always be done. So I have no doubt about that. So how can we do that? Let me see what notes I have. So yeah, it's any kind of foods you put in your body, any kind of behaviors, whether it's going to bed late or early, or drinking coffee, or going outside versus not going outside, it will always affect how your body feels. And that's how you can gather clues as to how to better take care of that body, your body. No experts, however famous they are, will be able to give you that specific answer and let you know exactly what your body needs. So we need to have a healthy focus on the messages that we receive from our body. I've seen so many people that have been sick for a very long time, and they're like with a magnifier looking at their body, and looking like, okay, I eat this, what is going to happen? Oh, I think I'm feeling bloated, So looking at things with a magnifier is not helpful. Looking at things from way too far, where you're feeling completely disconnected, is not helpful. So we need to have that healthy balance, or where we notice, we listen, we see, we hear, but we don't try to interfere with the process too much. Because if we are, and those are things we'll talk about more in the next days, if we are putting too much emotions and mental energy in this, it will just actually physically inhibit the digestion process and the way our body can handle those nutrients in a negative way, making you more likely to react negatively to that food. So isn't this not what we want, right? So one way I can explain it, it's like when you're, so it's just, standing back so you can see the whole forest. Many people, if they're using the magnifier to look at their body, it's like they're standing very, very close to the tree, and they just see the trunk and that very limited area. And other people are just turning literally away from the forest and don't want to see it. So you want to be at just a good distance so you see the forest and can listen to the message your body is sending you. And one way you can do that is by taking a break, slowing down, pressing the pause button, because most of us are just rushing from one thing to another, and our body needs space to talk to us. So maybe we can stop right now and drop inside. So trying not to judge it, and it's normal if you don't hear anything right now because maybe you haven't done that in a long time, but be patient with yourself and repeat this exercise as often as you can. So you can just take a big breath, close your eyes if it feels good and natural to you, and just ask your body, how are you feeling, body? Did you hear anything? Is your body talking to you? If not, try that again later. My body told me that, my breakfast is almost done digesting. It will be time to eat again soon, but I'm still feeling good and sharp and focused. And I feel like my energy levels are great. But I feel like I'm going to rest my voice a little bit and drink more water. So that's the messages I got. So whenever you do that, try to do that 2 or 3 times a day, more if you can, and see the messages your body is sending you. So those were the 5 toxins. It's time to grab your journal or a piece of paper if you haven't done already. I'll just recap. First one was inflammatory foods. Then we had sleep deprivation. Then undereating or overeating, or alternating between both. Then blood sugar, I don't know where to put my hand, blood sugar fluctuations, and then feeling disconnected from your body. My hand is kind of weird. I guess it's the angle of the camera. Sorry. Okay, I'm still new at this. So take the time to write those 5 toxins down and think about which of these 5 toxins are affecting your roots, the root that is your body, the most right now. Is it you feel like you have a lot of inflammatory foods in your diet? Do you feel like you're not getting enough sleep, or that your sleep is not restorative enough? Do you feel like you might not be eating enough at times, or that you're eating too much at other times? Do you feel like your blood sugar levels are peaking and crashing and going on this crazy roller coaster every day? Do you feel like you've lost that connection with your body and that trust, and don't feel like you know how to take care of your body anymore? So try to pick one to work on this week. Even though many of them may apply, it's not, trying to do too much at once is not helpful. Focus is really important. It will help you get better results compared to being so scattered, and it's also less overwhelming. So pick one. Pick one. And how could you remove that toxin and replace it with a better nutrients? If you picked anti-inflammatory foods, which foods could you eat less of or remove this week? And what anti-inflammatory foods could you add instead? If you picked sleep, what specific habit will you work on? Is it establishing a better bedtime routine? Working on your light exposure, more natural light during the day, less artificial lights at night, or caffeine? If you picked eating the right amount of food for your body instead of undereating or overeating, how will you make sure you eat the right amount for your body? If you picked balancing your blood sugars, how could you work on a loose schedule, or be prepared to eat every 3 to 5 hours? Or how could you maybe add some protein or healthy fats? Or how could you better balance your meals to keep your blood sugar levels more stable? And then if you picked trying to reconnect with your body, I would highly suggest that you try the stop and drop in exercise. Repeating that, maybe you could set a goal of, maybe before each meals, or mid-morning, mid-afternoon, before bed. So I think that is it for today, day one of getting to the root of your symptoms. We talked more specifically about the body, and tomorrow we'll be talking about the mind, because our thoughts influence many different things, including our actions and how we take care of our body and our body's ability to heal, and our emotions, which are also, associated with our nervous system, and how our whole body can function and heal and allow us to do the things that we want to do. All right, so if you have any questions, please drop them here below the video. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everyone.